So we will just get started here. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'm just so incredibly grateful and blessed that you're all here and that we get to go through this together. I always think of Abraham Hicks, that it's good to come together for the purpose of co-creating. And so I am just so incredibly honored to get to be in this space with all of you today. And it's so great to see so many familiar faces and a couple of new faces, and anybody on the replay watching, thank you for being here too. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah Chapman with Soul Abundance IQ, and I will share a little bit more about what this work has done for me in just a little bit. And so today we're going to really talk about being rooted and how we can use our daily life to clear the blocks that are standing in our way and really use this time of being alive on the planet at this very unique, interesting time to activate the peace and purpose and prosperity that is available to us, especially those of us who are striving to live purposeful and heart-centered lives. So just a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. I'll do a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll do a guided meditation. And then what we're going to focus on for being rooted today are our foundations, those foundational roots that help keep us grounded in our day-to-day life. And then our inner GPS, or I call this our inner guidance planetary system. And to me, this is when we can really activate our intuition and then tune that into Mother Earth and use that like a technology to keep us grounded and guided at all times. And then we're going to talk about how to align that with our soul path and soul purpose, and how to master the relationships that we find ourselves in, especially if those are shifting, as you know, life is shifting right now, and our relationship to the collective, or on social media, or within our family or our support groups, you know, that can be shifting a lot of times right now. And then my intention is that for every single one of you here with me today or watching on the replay, I really hope you get something out of being here today. And then for those of you who do want to go further with this, if it resonates with you, I do have a resource of a program that I put together that I'll share with you at the end. So I'm guessing that if you are here today, that you are someone who is spiritually open and you're on this awakening journey. I love the term awakening more than woke, because to me, it just represents that path of unfolding that we're going to be on through our entire life's journey. And I'm guessing you are probably also going to resonate with being an intuitive or an empath and taking on so much of what you feel around you. And you might also be a light worker or a healer. And again, someone who is here to live a purposeful life and live from your heart. And so if that is you, I'm assuming that you can really see the gifts that we've been given in this time. It's typically, you know, those of us in that community who were looking for the positives, and we can see how, oh, we've been given the gift to slow down or to really take stock or to spend more time at home or with our families. And I believe that it's those of us who are heart-centered like that that can really flourish during these times, because that's what the world is really yearning for and seeking right now. But it can also be extremely challenging for everyone alive right now, of course, but especially for those of us who are empaths and intuitives and who are doing the purposeful healing work on the planet right now, because we are going to feel it much more deeply than a lot of other people. And we're going to be affected by, not only our own energies that we are working on, but also our family and then greater communities. We're going to feel that anxiety and fear. And so we might feel a lot of pressure from that also. And that could be, you know, just pressure in our own lives, or pressure like we need to really do something. And it can really stop us a lot of times from actually being able to relax and flow and really allow ourselves to be in alignment with what we need at these times. And so, of course, again, like I said, being empaths or intuitive, you can feel all of these energies. And right now, there's so much more piled on between anxiety and fear coming up and the disconnection. You know, so many of us have felt isolated, or like our outlets that we've had before have been ripped away. And then the pressure from the polarization and having so many people using their beliefs in a weaponized way and feeling defensive about what they believe is right, instead of being able to shift that in a way where we can come together and work together as humans, no matter which way we think is the right way to show up. And then for us individually, at least what I've noticed for myself and for the purposeful people that I'm around, is that it's really brought up a lot of karma to be cleared. It's really ignited a lot of the internal pieces that are still asking to be worked on, and pain bodies to be seen. And so it's like we're getting it from both sides, seeing what's outside of us that's not aligned, and then having those pieces come up for ourselves as well, as the foundations are crumbling. And I feel like so many of us are in the state of the unknown. And it's so hard for the human brain to live in that state of not knowing what to expect, or what type of contingency plans do we make, and then how do we stay high vibration at the same time. And I have found for myself that even when I feel like I'm aligned and I'm in a flow state, that can root out a lot of shadows. I've been in conversations where, you know, I thought like, ooh, this is going to be so great, we're on the same page, or whatever it is. And then miscommunication happens, or it brings out something that is more of a negative outcome than was the intention. And while that can, of course, have a lot of healing through that, it's, you know, really recognizing that even when we think we're in this alignment right now, it can be rooting out a lot of heavy stuff for us to look at. So by the time we are done here today, I hope that you can walk away with a sense of deep connection to yourself and to the planet, and how to really give yourself more of what you need to be connected at this time. Whether that's your own inner connection or finding that connection outside of you to really support yourself, and to use that to release the blocks that might be in your way right now. And I also hope you go away feeling activated to bring in more clarity and have more groundedness through, you know, these shifting times. And then to also connect with more of your own peace and purpose and prosperity. So a lot of times when I am talking about this work, I say that we're connecting to the heart of the golden age. And I really like that term because what it means to me, and I think it can mean something different for everyone, of course, but the way that it speaks to my heart is tuning into a time of where we can feel heart-centered and feel like we're each making a positive impact in the world, and we're seeing more people working together, and we're seeing changes made that positively affect, you know, our children and our schools and our offices and our government and our planet and the way that institutions are run, that we can really come together while also reclaiming our own personal empowerment. and our personal sovereignty, and living from that place of personal empowerment while feeling just compassion and connection to those around us. So I like to start by talking about the chakras when we're looking at rootedness and really looking at what are our roots. So with this, I always think of that first chakra, that root chakra, and really grounding into that. And, you know, that represents our safety, our security. If we think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, that can really be fulfilling those basic fundamental pieces of life so that we feel like we can expand from there. And it's also about really taking care of our bodies and taking care of our homes and having spaces where we feel safe so that we can function day to day. And then from that root chakra, if we kind of tune into that and take that energy down, there is the Earth Star chakra. And that's really an energetic space that we can connect into to be grounded and rooted into Mother Earth and that beautiful living energy that's so healing from the earth and from nature. And when we're also talking about roots, this can be our ancestral lineage as well, and looking at the gifts that come forward from that, as well as the things that maybe need healed in our own individual ancestry. And then that's starting to come up on a global scale as well, as we're seeing with so many voices needing to be heard, and people asking to be heard and to be witnessed and to be recognized. So it's like we're getting to do this rooting in and rooting out work all at the same time. So just to tell you a little bit more about myself and why I believe in this process so much, I started studying healing modalities in 2002 when I was in college. And then after college, I worked in the corporate world, and I had been doing healing sessions for clients on the side. But I finally left and did healing modalities full-time in 2011 and got certified in Akashic record reading. And I've been doing energetic and intuitive coaching ever since then. But even with the work that I've done for myself internally, I noticed as soon as the pandemic hit this year, some really dark stuff started to come up for me, and I could see more of my own blocks and more of my own karma asking to be healed. And all I wanted to do was really just root in to my nuclear family, be at home, parent, and then just get into the earth. I just wanted to garden and have my hands in the earth and really just surrender myself, and really spend a lot of time communicating and listening to what Mother Earth had to say to me and what my spiritual practice could be or had for me because of what was coming up that needed to be looked at and needed to be transmuted in my own life. And so that's how this process of being rooted really got started for me. So let's take just a minute here to do a guided meditation and get grounded into the energy here together. So I'm just going to ask you to just sit comfortably in your space and start taking some deep breaths. And you can even start breathing audibly so you can hear your breath being released. And start to feel the chair underneath you and feel your feet underneath you. And as we go through this, I may suggest what I'm seeing, or I may suggest working with golden light, or certain colors may come up. But please always know that this is just a starting point. Please always give yourself permission to allow, if I say gold light and you see pink light, go with the pink light. Please go with what you are seeing and feeling inside of you. So as you are breathing and getting comfortable in your chair, start to ground into your seat and start to feel that root chakra at the base of your spine. And feel that red light, like a comfortable bowl, almost like a bowl coming up around your pelvis, opening up to hold you and to create space. And then start to see that light deepening and starting to go down your legs and down into your feet. Slowly melting from your feet into Mother Earth. And that red light going through the soil, through the rocks and stones and crystals, down through the tectonic plates, and really rooting into that core of Mother Earth. And from that connection, you start to feel the heartbeat of the earth. And you start to feel the love that the earth has for you. And you feel her coming from her highest place of wellness and wholeness. And from that space, she says, please leave all that you no longer need. Please give it to my soil so I may use it as compost. And start to breathe out what you don't need so that she can compost it into something that will serve you. And from this exchange with the earth, she has composted now energy to feed you and enliven you. And you start to feel that energy coming back up through the earth and into your feet, into your legs, as a beautiful, brilliant, golden, healing light that's here to nurture you. And you feel it moving up through that root chakra and through your pelvic bowl, coming up into your heart space. And you feel that energy radiating into every cell of your being. In the front of your body, in the back of your body, and on both sides. And feel it coming up over your head, like a pillar surrounding you, like a hug from the universe, coming above you, over your head, going up to meet your highest self. And from that space of that light connecting into your highest self, you start to connect in, asking your highest self to be with you during this time together and any time that you need that energy, inviting it in to give you more clarity, more support, more groundedness, more love, more healing, whatever it is that you need in any moment. So we're just going to take a minute here and just feel into that space with your highest self and just notice any feelings that come up, anything you hear or see. And inviting your highest self to come back to this space at any time that you have more questions or want to spend more time in this energy. And now that your highest self is present with you, that golden light energy starts to ripple out around your body from that connected space of Mother Earth, highest self, and that hug energy around you from the universe and source, and that ripples out into your daily life, into your home, into your work, into your relationships with your family, and start to send it into any spaces that feel hard for you. Any issues that bring up stickiness or contrast, start to send that golden light into those areas. And start to feel that light doing its healing job of creating space and creating love for the highest good for you and for all. And as you see that light ripple out, you have a deep sense of knowingness that this space that you hold is so important and so cherished, and that you hold a special place of purpose that ripples out and makes a difference in this world. And from that space, come back into your heart and let the light and the breath expand and contract. And thank yourself for showing up in this moment, for showing up for you, and showing up for that special medicine and purpose that only you have. So now take all the time you need to start to come back into your body. You might wiggle your fingers and toes and move your joints a little bit. And as you start to open your eyes, I'm going to invite you not to look at the screen for a moment and just look around your space. And just gently start to come back into your body. Okay, so just a very quick overview of this inner guidance GPS system that I use. When I write it out, it looks like a lot of pieces, but I really feel like these are a lot of very small bite-sized pieces that can really support us day to day. And so we're not going to go over all of these today, but I like to go through them because I feel like while it can build on itself, it's also not a linear process. And we may go into one step and then another without going in a specific order. But I always start with foundational roots, and that's one of the main things we're going to talk about today, as well as grace and compassion and calling in the frequencies and the vibrations that we want to be living, the things that we want to feel and experience in our day-to-day lives. And then next is intuitive development, and really finding a space of trusting our own knowing, trusting that still small voice within us and within our hearts, and connecting that in to Mother Earth consciousness, that space of all life that we all come from. And it's by connecting those two things that I really feel like we can create a new technology to be that North Star and that guiding compass whenever we need it. And then from there, that can also expand our soul path and our purpose and help us align to that in a greater way. I also really love to work with transmuting our triggers and our blocks. I feel like shadow work and allowing the space for our human emotions and the things that aren't so pretty to look at, when we give ourselves space for that, it can be so deeply healing that we can just create so much more from that space. And typically from that, there's always going to be a gift in that for us. So it's like transmuting those triggers and flipping them on their heads, or any of that negative energy that we feel, and finding what the gift in it is for us, so then we can have a deeper connection to our passion and to our joy and the things that light us up. And from there, we can go into heart alchemy and really living from our heart center and opening up that heart space to feel more love in our lives and allow more love to come in. And then from that uplifted space, connecting into the collective, whether that's your personal relationships, your work relationships, or the way that you take in the news or social media or greater groups of people, and just having that space to feel more peace and more harmony as we're going through these times. So that first piece is the foundational roots, and really showing up for yourself every single day. Again, we're going to talk about grace and compassion, so it's not ever about being perfect. And we always have to recognize what we need in life. It may not be feasible to spend an hour a day in spiritual practice, meditating, when we've got all our kids at home, or, we have to get to the office at a certain time. But how do we show up for ourselves day to day in a way that really honors who we are? And whether that's setting up those lifestyle pieces where we carve out 5 minutes for breathing, or 3 minutes just to drop our shoulders and ask ourselves an intention for the day. Some sort of practice to keep us in rhythm and in tune with ourselves, and really going into what I call radical self-care. And absolutely things like bubble baths and, whatever it is that feels good to us, but also bringing in some of the deeper work where we're maybe journaling through our sadness or anger or fear that we're feeling after we've been on Facebook or watched the news. Just so we have those practices ingrained and we remember our tools. I feel like so often it's reflected to me a tool that I've used before, and it's like, oh, thank you, I needed that again. So having that space to come back to the tools that we need to really move through anything that's not serving us. And then creating that process for interconnectedness. And to me, that's the interconnection and coming into ourselves, trusting ourselves more, connecting to that Mother Earth space, and then letting that ripple out where we are connected to the people who light us up the most. And we're connected to the people who help flow abundance in and out of our experience. and that interconnectedness to all of life, to all living beings, to the water we drink and the food we eat and the earth that we live on, so that we can really feel that richness and fullness. And to me, that is realized through our inner self. It starts from that inner space to create more love and more trust for ourselves, so that we can start to see that in our external experience more and allow more of that to come back to us. And when we build that practice, it does help to create a greater bandwidth. We can start to hold more space for who we are and the way that we operate, and we can extend that grace to someone else, and we just really can expand to hold more and more space, and to again, not get it perfect or right all the time, but to have the space to flow through our experience, no matter what that looks like at any given time. And I feel like a lot of this comes down to personal boundaries, and how are we holding the commitment to ourselves first and foremost. You know, as a recovering people pleaser, I used to always put everyone else ahead of me, and I would, you know, such a martyr, I would sacrifice myself and what I really wanted in order to try to match someone else's expectations. And I was miserable. And I'm definitely always going to be a work in progress, but I feel like by really honing my personal boundaries and tuning into, is this a no for me? Is this a yes for me? Of really allowing myself to lead the way before I look at what's good for someone else, and really holding the energies that I want to create. So tuning into, what do I want to be living? How to call in that joy or abundance, whatever it might be. And the physical experience as well, like really saying, I want to make this much money in my business, or I want to go on this vacation. It really goes both ways of what do we want to feel and what do we want to experience. And so then what is the commitment that we need to make to ourselves in order to really hold that space? And then bringing in the grace and compassion and permission for ourselves to hold those boundaries and give ourselves more of what we need. So I feel like this starts by just being open to listening to our inner selves and asking, what do I need? Maybe asking our spirit guides or our highest self or the universe or God, whatever term you use for that, just ask for the help. Ask to be shown what you need, and just be open to receiving that answer. And starting to recognize where pressure is coming from in your life. Where do you feel the pressure the most? What feels the most constricted? And just observing that and noticing, oh, it's when I'm in this situation, or it's when I force myself to do this. Really, it feels like obligation. I would have rather been doing that instead. So just starting to do the observation, I call it being the scientific observer, to just really, you know, be that scientist. Like, you're not trying to judge ourselves. And sometimes that can be difficult to separate ourselves from a little bit, but trying to step out of the judgment and hold that grace and compassion for ourselves, to just witness ourselves in our experience, to see, what am I doing? What would I rather be doing? And just starting to give ourselves that self-inquiry process to dive deep into that. And then I always say permission to be human and permission to be spirit. I feel like a lot of times when we are on a purposeful journey, we forget to give ourselves permission to be the humans that we are, to enjoy this experience. Our souls lined up to get into bodies to be here. This is where we wanted to come to experience, even though it may not always feel like that from our human perspective. But remembering the playfulness and the joy. I just got this from my spirit guides last night of like, oh, you're being too serious again. Like, just get up and go dance for a minute. And tune back into the playfulness and the joy that is here, that can be tuned into. And not being strict and rigid with ourselves all the time. And then permission to be spirit, and permission to be that powerful, purposeful creator that you are. I think many of us that are on this heartfelt journey can sometimes have that resistance to fully bringing in our power and our empowerment, because it can be a little overwhelming to really tune into just how truly powerful and how sacred we are. So I think, by just recognizing that and just setting the intention that like, hey, I'm on this journey. I don't have to get it right or perfect right now, but I am going to just give myself the love and compassion to be human and to be spirit at the same time. And I also really value inner child work and really going into our inner child and doing the healing work that's there. And this again relates back to that ancestral lineage and bringing forward the gifts, seeing our ancestors as people who were just doing their very, very best. I always like to go back and think of them as little children wanting and needing love. And then giving our own little child, thinking of ourselves at, such tender little ages. Often it'll be ages that just come up in your mind's eye as you're doing this work, and going back and reparenting ourselves and holding that child self of ours in love. And then from that space, tuning into our inner guidance planetary system. So this is where we start with our own intuition and that inner knowing that divine God source energy has given to each and every one of us. And tuning into that space that is our truth, and going into that gut feeling to know where to go or what to believe in each moment, and starting to trust that. So often in our societies, we've really been conditioned to look outside of ourselves and to get validation or get approval, or get opinions from other people, from outside of ourselves. And we often forget how to trust our own inner knowing. And I feel like that's a process that can be deepened and deepened and deepened throughout our entire lifetime. But from that space of just being open to listening to our own inner voice, then we can start to connect to that more into the consciousness of Mother Earth, the living being that she is, and that all life comes from, so that we can really ground ourselves into that and create that compass. Because, especially from here on out, our Earth is asking for healing. And we as a human race have become so disconnected from the one and only planet that we live on. And I know many of you here are already connected to Earth and that energy, but as a whole, that's why we need more people to be connected to that without being overwhelmed or working through it when it does become overwhelming, so that we can start to hold that sacred space of healing for our entire race. Because the Earth really is going to be fine, but will our human race survive if we don't start waking up to all of this? And I just watched a really great documentary. If you're interested in looking it up, it's called Aluna. about the Kogi tribe in Colombia. And this is an indigenous tribe that, from what I've heard, they actually had a very big civilization, like empire type of civilization, just like we live in an empire now. But, you know, over the years, the tribes have become smaller and smaller and smaller, but they believe that they are the keepers of that earth wisdom, and they are here to help us reconnect to that. And the whole message of this documentary, Aluna, was to try to awaken modern society to the fact that everything is interconnected. And what happens to the earth on one continent or at one mountain will affect it somewhere else. And so really bringing us back to the interconnectedness, that what we do for ourselves helps to ripple out, not only to uplift our experience, but to uplift the entire world as well. And a lot of this, in my opinion, right now, we're seeing so much coming up from the pain bodies of separation, the pain of the separation from earth, from our inner voice, from that deep connectedness to God source energy. And by going into transmuting those triggers and doing that deep inner work for ourselves, again, it ripples out to uplift everyone we touch, and even those that we don't necessarily see the impact on. And then I feel like this work also really helps us to deeply align with our soul path and purpose more and more and more. And when we're in that alignment, I call it green light city. It feels like we are hitting all the green lights and nothing is going to slow us down. There's no red lights ahead. And I just heard someone the other day use the term that the door is opening before your hand has even touched the knob. So it's like all the doors are opening for you before you've even tried. Now, we are meant to have a human experience, so it's not meant to be hitting all the green lights all the time. But when we do have things that seem to be roadblocks or that are slowing us down, we start to see that contrast. I love to call it contrast. We see it as valuable, that there's gifts in that for us, and that it's going to bring us something even greater. And we can start to see our experience through the eyes of Source. Again, giving ourselves the compassion and love that Source has for us, and remembering that for ourselves. And I also feel like a big part of really stepping fully into our purpose is being in alignment with our own energetic metabolism. And I feel like there's a lot of parts and pieces to what that is to me, but it starts with our personal rhythms and our cycles of creation. So again, that deep self-inquiry work of looking at what feels good to us. Am I someone who really likes to be busy every day, all day, or am I just doing that because I think it's productive or valuable or worthy? Am I someone who needs rest at certain times? And looking at how your cycles work during the day and during a month. I like to use one full lunar cycle, going through full moon, new moon, full moon, to look at my own personal energies. And when do I need the greatest rest? When am I the most productive? And really harnessing that and working with it and allowing myself the space to rest when I need it. So that my cup can be full to give more instead of being depleted over and over and over again until burnout. And I also feel like with energetic metabolism, there's a piece here of looking at if you're an introvert, an extrovert, what lights you up, what do you really need? And of course, you know, we're going to be in situations sometimes that's not always our highest, you know, vibration or our best feeling ever. But then knowing if we're going to step into that situation, that maybe it takes a little bit more from our energy, then what do we need for ourselves to replenish? And how do we start to do that radical self-care to build that into our schedules or to build that into our lives? And then mastering our relationship with the collective. And again, when I'm talking about the collective, I feel like any personal relationships are our interface into the greater collective of the human race. So again, our personal relationships with ourselves and our commitment to our own boundaries, and then showing up in our family and our work, and those greater circles, as well as social media and how we digest the news. Any of those pieces are the relationships that we're showing up in. And so how do we work with that interconnectivity and hold that personal sovereignty, reclaim sovereignty? And I feel like especially those of us in the United States, because America is the country that has the energy of freedom. That is what we stand for. We especially are working with this thought around reclaiming our sovereignty and our personal empowerment and not giving ourselves away. But doing that from a space of holding those boundaries while then being able to go out and work with other people, find that unified space to uphold the interconnectedness of our entire world's ecosystem, because it is all just one big ecosystem that we live on here on planet Earth. And so being able to harmonize our field and come into our heart center, where we can alchemize those negative feelings or the blocks and things that pull us down, not as something bad or wrong, but that is something that has a gift for us, so that we can then begin to tap into that peace and that harmony to bring in more prosperity, and prosperity for all. I really feel like one of the energies that we're working on transcending at this time is the old thought form of scarcity. And again, that is a root chakra issue where, you know, so much of our civilization has been built on competition. And if you take that, I won't have enough. Or if I take this, then that means you won't have enough. Instead of what we're being called to during these transformative times of prosperity consciousness and recognizing there really is enough for everyone. And by me accepting my abundance, it does not take away from you. And you claiming your abundance does not take away from me. So I personally believe that using this process can really help to clear what's blocking us so that we can create that alignment to help us move forward and focus on manifesting with greater ease, to create the feelings we want and the life that we want to be living, even when there's times of contrast, to be able to attune to this new paradigm, to find that new foundation that you can tune into to live from the space of your heart and your purpose and your joy. And really to have greater and greater clarity on the gifts that only you have and the gift that you are in the world. Because just your very beingness as a soul in this human body is a gift. You got into this body at this time for a reason. And each and every one of us have a special medicine, a special healing for ourselves and our world. And it doesn't have to look like any one thing. It doesn't mean that you have to have a spiritual business. It doesn't mean that you have to be doing anything. It just is about living the expression of yourself that only you have. And I believe that by doing this, we can really bring forth our inner peace and outer peace that, again, ripples out into our world. and it really starts to pull the veil of illusion away, and it starts to rip away that disconnection that we've been feeling in order to reconnect to ourselves and the world around us. So for those of you who are interested in going further with this work, I do have a 10-week group program called Rooted, where we are going to be tuning in and going deeper into all of these energies. It goes November 20th through January 29th. And in this, we're going to be doing 4 live group calls. So there's going to be time for Q&A and coaching and just to be witnessed and process anything that comes up for you in this work. We're also going to be doing 2 transmissions. So these are going to be recorded for you to listen to in your own sacred healing space where you can get comfortable. And it's also going to be a group Akashic record clearing. So if you're not familiar, the Akashic records are an energy field that we can tune into to get information, to clear what doesn't serve us, to reprogram our energy field for what does. I always think of it as our energy bodies. So just how we have our physical bodies, our mental body, our emotional body, we also have this energetic body. And so that's what we're really going to be tuning into. And of course, with that, there is overlap with our mental and emotional states. So we're going to be doing clearing work around that that's going to be specific for the group. And then for each of the 4 modules, there's going to be guided meditations, video content, worksheets, and then there's going to be a private Facebook group where we can come together and share and just go through the process together. And I have 2 bonuses for anyone who signs up. If you want to bring a friend for half price, you can do that. So you can either bring a friend because this work is so great to do with those we care about the most. And you can either both split the discount, so each get 25% off, or one person can take the 50% off. And then for each person who signs up, I'm sharing my Finding Fulfillment Through the Soul's Gifts online course. So that is a e-course that's been pre-recorded where I go through each one of the soul gifts. And I'm just gonna pull up a little thing about that here, where you can look at the different ways that the soul expresses and start to see yourself in the different energies and how they show up in the positive side and how they might show up in the more challenging side and how to work with that. So let me open it up here if anyone has any questions about that or anything you guys want to share or talk through. And I also want to just say thank you, everyone, for being here. I just really appreciate this space to get to come together with purposeful, heart-centered people who are on this journey. And I'm so blessed that I get to witness each and every single person in their gifts during this time.